Okay, so here I have all of the pattern pieces laid out. I have this beautiful jaguar printed woven fabric, very soft. Don't really remember where I purchased it from, but I've had it for a while in my stash, so I'm just sewing down the stash. So I have this huge oversized dropped shoulder oversized sleeve that I've constructed the pattern for this, and I have the front here, I have the back piece, and I also have the collar. So watch me as I cut this out and put this beauty together. Okay, so usually I use the dress form to check the fit. I have it padded to either my own measurements or those of a client. So I have the pocket sewn on front here. This is where it's turned under for the button placket to kind of test the fit there. I know that I'll have some extra ease throughout here. I've added for the collar. And from the side view, because it is the dropped sleeve, I've got that added ease throughout here as well. So I've put some markings on the front for pleats. I don't know if I'm gonna really go with the pleats or not, but I usually pull out the dress form just to have a look and kind of stand back and see if I like it. So far it's still in the early stages, but I think in terms of the fit, I do want it to be quite a bit oversized, especially to accommodate the sleeve. So this is what I do. Okay, so here I have the front portion of the blouse with the back portion of the blouse, right sides together, and I will be stitching at my 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, connecting the shoulder seams together first. Once I do the shoulder seams, I will go ahead and sew up the side seams and probably test again for fit. But again, because it's oversized, you know, it's not really a big deal for a perfect fit. It's a nice, relaxed fitted shirt. So shoulder seams and then sew up the side seams. Okay, so I've moved on to the sleeves. I have those removed from the pattern. I have my notches marked here for the back. I have 2, as well as 1 marked up here for the front. And of course the notch to match up with the shoulder seam. And I'll be sewing those into this sleeve here, but because it's a relaxed sleeve and I've got an overhang from the shoulder point for at least a good 3 inches, 3.5 inches, it's not a nicely fitted set-in sleeve. So it's just a nice relaxed fit under the arm as well as extension over the shoulder. Okay, moving on to this big sleeve here. So I have right sides together. I folded my pleats here at the top as well as did tiny little gathering, not a whole lot because it's not really set in. It's very relaxed around the upper arm and just sewing at my 5-inch seam allowance down the side portion of the sleeve here. Okay, so here's the opening to my sleeve here. I have the sleeve with the bodice right sides together and I have it pinned all the way around, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch that at the typical 5/8 of an inch seam allowance that the pattern calls for. Okay, so here is the blouse on the dress form. I have both of the sleeves sewn in. Again, everything is a nice relaxed fit. That shoulder is probably a good 4-inch drop from the shoulder line, 4.5 inches. There are the pleats on the side here, and let's see what it looks like from the back. So just very nice, oversized fit. I thought about doing some additional pleating in the front here, but I don't think I'm gonna mess with it. I've got about a 1-inch closure in the front for the button band, and I will see what that looks like. But so far, you know, the dress form, it's padded to me, so it is what it is. Nice big pocket here in the front. I think it's really cute. This fabric, I wasn't sure what to do with it, and I only had about 2 yards of it. So it's like, you know what? Let's just do an oversized blouse. So now I have to work on the cuffs and decide if I'm going to do elastic at the sleeves. If it were probably a heavier weight fabric, I probably would get definitely a different drape throughout here. Would see more of the puffiness at the sleeve, because I did allow for a lot of extra puffiness at the top as opposed to, you know, at the bottom. So I'll either do elastic at the cuff or just actually make a cuff. I'm not really sure yet. Still figuring that out, because I've got enough seam allowance regardless at the edge of the wrist. If I decide to go ahead to do a cuff, I've allowed for that. So I'll be working on the collar here and the buttons, and that's pretty much it. Of course, the hem as well. Okay, so moving on to the casing for the elastic for the wrist. I'm not going to do a cuff. I really didn't do the split in the pattern for the cuff and for the placket. So to keep it simple, I'm going to take the elastic that I've measured around my wrist here, and I've probably left about 1.25 inches. Just depends on comfort level, because the elastic does stretch. And I've made the casing, stitched all around the cuff here, and left about probably 1 inch opening to be able to feed the elastic and the pin through. So I just feed this all the way around and make sure not to lose it. Just keep going all the way around. Takes a little work. Okay, so just to give you a closer look, once you get that other piece pulled through, and of course you've held the other piece with either a safety pin or a pin or something so that it doesn't lose its place in the channel, you want to sew those two ends together. Or sometimes I just baste them if I have enough edges left, but since it's so tiny, I'll probably just go ahead, I've measured pretty good there, and stitch those closed back and forth a few times, and maybe even zigzag across on the regular stitch length, like 2.5 or 3. And once that's done, you just close that existing edge up of the casing, and that's it. Test for fit. Okay, so there's a picture of my oversized sleeve with the cuff, with the elastic. Simple and cute. So I'm going to move on to the other side, work on the hem at the bottom, and I'll probably just turn up a 1/4 inch, an additional 1/4 inch all around the bottom, just a rolled hem. And then I'll be working on the button band. Keep watching, guys. Hit that like button, share, subscribe, and comment. Let me know what you're working on and what you think I could have done differently, or what you'd like to see me work on in the future. Thanks for watching. Okay, so I'm moving on to the hem, and I've just turned up about 1/2 inch here once, and I'm going to turn up again an additional 1/2 inch. And I'm going to stitch that all the way around. Okay, so here I moved on to the collar, and I have both my upper collar as well as my interfaced under collar, and I'm going to stitch the sides all around the top, all around the bottom, and leaving this bottom area open. And I'm just going to continue along the top of the collar. And I'm sewing, if I hadn't mentioned before, at the 1/4 inch seam allowance. That's what the pattern called for. All around the top and as well on the sides. And of course, I want to remove my pins as much as I can. Sometimes I leave them in for demonstration purposes while sewing, because it's difficult to video when you're actually sewing. But it's important to not sew over those stitches. All right, let's go ahead and go down this one side here. I think I've already done that side. Yep, I already have. So I'm not going to use the automatic thread cutter. And technically this is really only basted. But once I've sewn down the sides as well as the back, I want to make sure everything is turned out properly and get those nice corners there. And this is just basted, so I'm going to go back and do real stitches when we're done to make sure my corners are nice and straight and nothing's sticking through. But you can see how I've left my under collars, quick little tip, just a little bit smaller than that upper collar to allow for nice turning. And I want to give it a good press. Okay, so once my under collar and upper collar have been sewn together, this is the under collar. I have all pinned to the collar of the shirt. And guys, this shirt was giving me Gordon Gartrell vibes. I'm telling you in the beginning, if I'm dating myself, but I was a teenager watching The Cosby Show, which I absolutely loved. And this was the episode where Denise was making Theo this shirt. And it was so funny because the shirt was so hideous. But sewing up this collar, under collar, and upper collar, again, it was an easy version. This shirt was one that I just did from a pattern that was self-drafted. I did not do a collar stand. I just wanted something that was quick to put together to see if I could actually do it from scratch and it would fit. I did a muslin only for the bodice portions, and you know, for the sleeves and the collars and everything, I just sewn up and went with it with this fabric and took my chances. But once I finally figured out, I did have to put darts, you know, in areas that the pattern didn't call for because it is oversized, and I had all that extra seam allowance here and there and extra yardage to play with within the shirt itself. But same thing with the neck of the collar, because everything is measured, you know, to the circumference of your neck. Because it's oversized, it was a lot larger. And because this under collar was also cut on the bias, it also stretched. So I had to be a little inventive and go in and do some darts here and there to make it work. And I did some pleats as well, and I'll share that with you in the final product. But so far I am pleased. So once I'm sewing up this collar here, I will just take this edge that I've got turned under here to fold over the seam allowance to hide the under collar and stitching, and I will be almost done and moving on to the button band, and this shirt will be finished. Okay, so at this point, I'm just gonna go through and thread this needle, and then I'm gonna close up the close up the neck seam of this shirt with just an invisible hem hand stitching. And I'm choosing to do this part not by sewing machine because I don't want those stitches to show on the outside. So handiwork. And believe me guys, there's nothing quick about this process. Just taking my time, in and out as I stitch. So those of you that are new to the channel, please consider liking, sharing, commenting, letting me know if these videos are helpful to you in any way. And also consider following me on other social media platforms as well. I'm on TikTok, House of a Coty Design, Instagram, House of a Coty Design, at House of a Coty is Instagram, Facebook, House of a Coty Design and Gifts. And I usually try to post about once a week on YouTube, just sharing various, you know, sewing techniques, sometimes sharing the patterns that I'm working on or patterns that I'm actually testing. I haven't put any on the commercial market yet. I said 2025 was my target year for that, but guys, I have bins of patterns that I've been creating, so I rarely buy commercial patterns anymore. Now, if I see designers out there, I just want to, you know, go and support, of course, I'll just buy their pattern and keep it. Sometimes I make it, sometimes I post it for challenges or things that I see on social media, or sometimes I just post it and, you know, hack it, try to give it a different look if it's something that I actually like, you know, for myself. But now, since I'm into pattern making, I just like the opportunity to be able to do it, you know, on my own.
but this is such a small channel, so it really helps when you subscribe. It works with that YouTube algorithm when you comment and when you like, and share as well. But, I've been doing this now for probably about 3 years consistently, probably 2 years consistently on YouTube, trying to grow the channel, which I know takes a while. Not everyone is going to like your vibe or, have interest in what you're doing. And sometimes people just come to look, get the information, and go their merry way, and not really thinking about, watching the entire video as they're comparing you, to others just to get ideas. But for you guys that actually take your time and sit there and watch me sew and make these patterns and, hack my own patterns and test them, I sure would appreciate it if you consider becoming a regular member and watching me grow. And that helps through subscribing, once again, by hitting that like button and follow me as I tend to post. But I'm just going to continue my hand stitching and then give this a good press and then start working on that button band. But there's nothing short of taking your time to put these stitches in to get a nice clean closure to your neck. But so far it's looking pretty good inside and out. Keep watching, guys. Okay, so I have the collar all sewn on here, and it looks really good throughout here. All that was hand stitched to close the seam. I've moved on to the button stand here. So what I've done, I've measured about 19 inches from the top to the bottom, not including a 1/2 inch down from here where that first button's going to be closest to the top, and I came up about 1 inch from the bottom. So I divided that, by 19, the area. I want 6 buttons. Could get 7 in there. I'm going to probably leave about 4 inches of space at the bottom here because I bought 2 packs and I have 6 buttons. But I'm going to go ahead and start from here. And what I do is I measure 19, divide that by the number of buttons I want on the button stand so I can get 6. So I've measured that here, and I've got about 3 inches apart to get about 6 buttons, and I've got that extra width throughout here. My button band is about 1 inch. My buttons are about 5/8 of an inch. I've got plenty of room to play with. And I'm going to use my buttonholer foot on the Bernina machine and test that out to see what it looks like. But so far, I'm loving this leopard print blouse. And I'm thinking that's leopard, guys. I'm not sure, but it's so darn cute. I truly don't remember where I got this animal print fabric, but when I saw it, I was like, wow, that's so neat. Not sure what I'm going to do with it, but I didn't have a whole lot of it. I was only able to get this blouse out of it. I did do the hem, and that came out really nice too. I just did that actually by the machine. I did not do any stitching by hand, for that. But anyway, so far so good. Time to do buttons. Keep watching. Okay, so the 7 series with the Bernina, this is the interface or the screen that I'm using. I'm going to go to the buttonhole stitch, and I'm just going to choose a random buttonhole, a typical regular rectangular buttonhole stitch. But again, if I don't know the exact dimensions of my button, this machine will tell me how to stitch out the proper size of the buttonhole. So I go to my icon here, and I'm going to choose this feature, and then this pops up, the little screen with the button. So by default, it's like a 14 millimeter. Of course, this is a European manufacturer, so everything is in millimeters as opposed to inches here, which is really the standard around the world anyway, but I'm in America, so I'm going with what I use in front of me. So this is my 5/8 of an inch. So when I place this button here on that little circle, I can actually adjust my multifunction knobs over here to let me know the different size. So basically, if I want to take the size of my button, I've got the, of course, holding the phone to show you this here, I can increase the size of the button if the button were that large. And again, in millimeters, it's about from inches, 5/8 of an inch to millimeters. I measured a little over 15 and a half. So I'm gonna go with 16 millimeters just to be safe. I actually did this first one at about 15 and a half, and it was able to go through. So if we keep it at what my example was, so it looks uniform, this machine gives you an extra 2 millimeters of width on each side of the button to allow extra space for that button to get through. So once I'm happy with what I have here, I can actually close this screen out, and it actually shows me again the type of button that I'm going with here.